So, welcome back, everybody. This is Trish. It is the week of April 22nd, 2026, and the year is marching forward quickly. So, let's jump in. From the Mormon Church to Portland, Oregon. What happens when you get out? You have to learn to live without the constant change and stimulation and the chaos. I had to learn to make better choices. Better choices than my mother. I had no map, no money, and no safety. Just me. The first year on my own, I lived in Salt Lake City. Members of the Mormon Church took me in, helped me get a living space with other young women. It was where I learned to work full time and to pay rent. At home, when we couldn't pay for utilities or rent, we left. Here, I learned how to do it. I had roommates until the last couple of months and went back to Oregon, where I spent much of my growing up years. I was 19 living on my own in Portland, Oregon. I didn't know anyone yet. I started some courses at the community college, Portland Community College, and was working at waiting tables at night. I was young and had no debt, sold my car when I first got there, and started fresh. I was jogging 3 to 6 miles daily, they call it running, and worked out at the YWCA. It had this big pool that I loved. Yet I was having a hard time making friends. Most my age still were attached to their family at the base, even if in university, or they had a boyfriend, which I couldn't even seem to manage. I realized how much I was missing socially, but I was a joiner and jumped in. I was really starting at a basic level, got a studio apartment close to work. I also started going to counseling. I was very aware I was alone. I remember telling my manager at the restaurant if I didn't come in or call to send someone to check on me, that I would not do that to her. Counseling was spotty in my ability to afford it, but found professionals along the way. I was mothered a little by one of the counselors. I didn't mind at 20. My counselor went to the opera with me. When I look at that today, it seemed that it would be a boundary issue, but then it was support. The second part of recovery came 13 years later when I stopped drinking and was a member of AA. I've said during and after I left home, I knew my childhood was bad, but I didn't have a vocabulary for the things I experienced that I do now. I also was ashamed of my beginnings, so I did what I did with most things. I hid it. I often lied about my childhood to people. On my own, as a young adult, I wanted a different life. As far as finances, I had little to no information. I learned quickly the basics. I had to make money to survive, but money was not my focus. I was raised at a time just before it was more accepted in society to be born out of wedlock. How I was seen by people was important to me. And being a welfare child, well, we were children that were pitied or avoided, depending on the circumstances. It also depended on where you lived. California was more accepting, and Oregon was more reserved. It is part of the experience of how I define myself. As a child, I compensated by being outgoing and outspoken. It worked well with adults, not so much with children my age. As an adult on my own, I wanted to be liked and accepted. When I lived with my family, I was boisterous and bossy and tried to take command to make things better, but was very ineffective. My mother really wouldn't allow it and would say, "I'm the adult here. This is my home." I would fold like a napkin, especially between 10 to 14 years old. I would surrender and give up. I would still stand up periodically and talk back to my mother. It was clear to me how differently I operated outside the familiarity of being with my family of origin. In early recovery with AA, we would have these exercises in seeing who we really were, like trying to figure out how much we spent on drinking and so on. I did one on how many times I moved between the first grade and when I graduated. 20 times. From Portland, Oregon to Southern California, even into San Felipe, Mexico. Then over to Carson City, Nevada, and up to the Canadian border at Blaine, Washington. I was at one school for a week in Bellingham before Blaine. Finally, that same year, my fifth grade, we settled in Spokane, Washington for the last few months. While my younger siblings became more docile, I began to become more outspoken. Like many times before, I had to create myself as an adult. The first year or so, I didn't drink, so I was able to function better. I think I became more chameleon like to make friends, get along with people. Now I could be friendly. I could talk to anybody. You do that when you're used to moving every so often. You get used to making friends and letting go of friends. I was gentle in behavior and blunt with almost adult opinions. When I speak to clients and friends about counseling, what they share is different than my experiences. Counselors help them identify and plan for what their goals are around therapy. We just went inside the office and I talked, and in the beginning, that was enough. I felt heard, like I was trying to get better. I learned some things about myself. The issue with just counseling for me, I didn't have all my own information. In the world, I was reactionary and processed through our family's experiences on the road, what my mother said, school, and how the world treated us.